Reports of unidentified objects usually feature lights in the sky accompanied by awfully blurry photographs or tales from remote country backroads late at night where someone on their own claims to have seen something mysterious. But today's story is of an encounter so bold that the government would really prefer if people just stopped talking about it. This was an event that took place in the city suburbs in the middle of the day and was seen by hundreds of corroborating witnesses over an extended period. We're going to take a closer look at this incident and how it became erased from the public record and the witnesses were intimidated into silence. On Wednesday the 6th of April 1966 at around 11 a.m, an unidentified craft silently flew around the sports fields of Westall High School in Westall, which is a suburb in Melbourne, Australia. This incident would be seen by 200 to 300 staff, students and neighbouring residents and workers who would respond in a scene of chaos and hysteria akin to what you'd expect to see in a Hollywood movie. We will begin this story when a girl burst into the Year 9 science classroom and screamed, "Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Greenwood, there's flying saucers in the sky!" Andrew Greenwood was in the middle of teaching and thought, this child must have become deranged or something, so he didn't take any notice of this disruptive commotion. But when the child insisted this object was in the sky, he became intrigued about what had brought on this behaviour and decided to go out and have a look for himself. He was immediately confronted by a situation that was rapidly gaining momentum among the students from other classes, and an atmosphere of collective excitement was rapidly unfolding as Mr. Greenwood followed the children running out onto the oval, where he found himself in the presence of an unbelievable scene. Children were running hysterically all over the place while others were crying in the belief that this was the end of the world. The cause of their concern quickly became apparent as he followed the gaze of fellow teachers and students who were looking towards the northeast area of the school grounds, and he immediately knew he was seeing something incredible. Trying to make sense of what he was looking at, he just stood there absolutely transfixed, looking at what he could only describe as nothing other than a flying saucer hovering close to the power line. Other witnesses that day would report seeing 3 objects that were described as the classic cigar-shaped UFO that were about the size of 2 or 3 cars and constructed out of what appeared to be a grey metal with a purple hue. It also quickly became apparent that there were 5 light aircraft in close pursuit, seemingly trying to get as close as they could to the object while flying in an erratic manner that would not be accepted within the restricted airspace above the Melbourne suburbs. It was as though the pilots were in a game of cat and mouse. Every time the aircraft got close to the object, it would slowly move away, then rapidly accelerate to a new position from them and then stop, moving about the area with some degree of precision, giving the impression that it was being intelligently controlled. This activity continued for about 20 minutes in the area of Westall High School when suddenly the object quickly took off, flying in the direction of the Grange, which was located about 600 metres or a quarter of a mile away. The Grange was a nature reserve and a place really well known by the children where they would compete in cross-country running for school, as well as where they would go to explore and get into mischief after school and on weekends. On seeing the craft fly into the direction of the Grange, a number of the children didn't hesitate in immediately running after it. Schoolgirl Terry Peck ran with 2 other girls who were faster than her and managed to get to where the object had landed first. When Terry arrived, she came to within about 6 metres of the object, which she described as being bigger than a car and circular with what might have been lights underneath and purple lights around it, and noted that it was emanating a heat and slight buzzing sound. She could see the other 2 girls appeared really white and pale, and one of them, Tanya, was hysterical and the other had fainted. Not long after, the object raised up about 12 feet, turned on its side and disappeared up into the air, heading in a northwesterly direction, leaving behind a distinct swelling impression in the long grass that was described as not burnt but unusual in appearance, almost as if boiled. One of Tanya's friends walked her back to Westall High School and an ambulance soon took her away, never to be seen again, and the rest of the children were ordered back inside. What happened next is a series of events that would take this incident from being something purely amazing and unbelievable at one moment and pulled down into a depraved government conspiracy the next. Just 25 to 30 minutes after the sighting began, an assortment of government agencies arrived at Westall High School in the Grange, including the Police and Fire Brigade, as well as the Air Force and Army, with about 20 personnel in 2 trucks with 2 jeeps. During this bewildering commotion, some of the children were interviewed in school principal Frank Sambalibi's office by unknown men who were described as wearing good quality suits and being well spoken. They asked questions like, "I guess you think you saw a UFO and you probably think there were little green men too." That afternoon, the government officials watched as Principal Frank Sambalibi addressed students in the school hall and told them to keep quiet and forget what they'd seen and not to talk about it, or they'd get into trouble. He would similarly also warn the staff that they'd lose their jobs if they were to talk about it. Frank was a man of structure and order, and this disruptive event needed to be put to bed and the normal school routine resumed. It was put to the school community that what they had encountered was not a UFO, but in fact swamp gas. Not swamp gas. The official line was this event was the observation of a weather balloon, the cliche explanation for unidentified aerial phenomena at the time. The High Altitude Balloon Program, referred to as HIBAL, was a joint US-Australian initiative to monitor atmospheric radiation levels using large silver balloons equipped with sensors. It was proposed that a test balloon may have blown off course and came down near Westall High School, but despite government archival records showing the results of numerous HIBAL test flights, the paperwork for launches scheduled for the day before the Westall incident appear to have been lost or destroyed. Meanwhile, the media had caught hold of the excitement and were positioned outside the front of the school, managing to draw the attention of one young girl who responded to their calls for comment. However, during her interview, a man in a uniform approached the journalist and told him to go away and sent the girl back inside the school, where she would later be given detention for having ignored the principal's directive for silence. The event was clearly something out of the ordinary and newsworthy, and efforts to suppress the media were evident. Despite persuasive interferences, some reporting would materialise. The Dandenong Journal led the coverage of the incident on its front page, and 9 News also reported the story in its 6 p.m. bulletin. But unfortunately, researchers are unable to draw upon this moment to capture it on film, as the film canister containing the original footage has since been unusually found empty in the station's archives. The period following this incident remained in a murky state of external interference and was essentially a cover-up. An example of this strangeness occurred with chemistry teacher Barbara Robbins, who had taken a camera out with her when the objects appeared over the school, supposedly capturing several photographs of the event. But unfortunately, government officials would later confiscate not just the film, but also the actual camera in an effort to expunge all evidence of what had taken place, other than the recollections of the witnesses who were dismissed as being mistaken or delusional about what they claimed to have seen. Mystery surrounding the Westall incident was compounded by unexplained events concerning one of the key characters, Tanya, who was the girl that had become hysterical in the presence of the object at the Grange and was taken away by the ambulance. Presuming she was recovering at home, one of Tanya's friends went to visit her the following day, but she was met at the door by an English-speaking woman who told her there was no one named Tanya living there, which was an odd situation given that Tanya's mother was from Slovenia and not English-speaking, and their home was shared with an Austrian couple. Mystery surrounded the disappearance of Tanya for many years, with claims she had been sent away to live in a convent. However, Tanya recently responded to requests for comment, explaining that she was not hidden away in a convent. The event just happened to coincide with a planned move with her mother to a new home, which included leaving Westall High School to become a student at St Joseph's Catholic Primary School in the neighbouring suburb of Springvale. She claimed to have been interviewed by men from the government who left a parting message that the Australian government was working with something very important that was supposed to be a secret to the Westall community. This would make Tanya feel very special, and she upheld her commitment to the secrecy entrusted upon her, never even telling her mother about the details of what she had experienced. Despite being in on this secret, she maintained the same view of other witnesses, that there was no way what she saw was a weather balloon or the trial of some confidential government technology. There was no plausible explanation for what she saw, described as being able to move like nothing we even have today. Whatever it was clearly not made on Earth. In the week that followed the incident, a heavy military and police contingent restricted access to the Grange. Being familiar with the area, Mr. Greenwood and others were able to sneak in and see what was going on. They could see the focus of attention being placed on the flattened grass when military personnel conducted sweeps with Geiger counters and other test equipment. The grass would later be made flat, with some claiming it was also burnt, destroying all evidence of the event. 2 weeks after the sighting, Mr. Greenwood received a knock on his door at home from 2 government officials, one dressed in plainclothes and the other as a senior Royal Australian Air Force officer. He said the officials tried to intimidate him into saying he'd not seen anything, and when he refused, they threatened they could make him lose his teaching job, telling him, "You'd be ill-advised to go on saying that, because clearly you were drunk on duty, and that sort of thing would have to be reported to the Education Department, and of course you'll lose your job." The multi-departmental government response to this incident is almost as intriguing as a mysterious object observed by the hundreds of witnesses at Westall. What is especially interesting is the ability of these government agencies, particularly the Air Force and Army, to be on the scene only 25 to 30 minutes after it commenced. That's the sort of time that would be considered a reasonable benchmark for a dedicated military quick reaction force that was waiting, ready to deploy from within the surrounding area. But there were no full-time garrison units of soldiers stationed anywhere near the vicinity of Westall, and it would seem highly unlikely that 2 trucks and 2 jeeps of 20 military personnel just happened to be in the area. Furthermore, there is no record of the 5 pilots who were reportedly in pursuit of the object, let alone an aviation incident report which should have been raised by the air traffic controller of the nearby Moorabbin airport. So the question is, was there a conspiracy? Or was the Westall incident the result of a collective delusion? Perhaps the overactive imagination of children? Or are there other explanations altogether? Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. If you found this story interesting, I'd suggest you read into the Rua School Incident, which occurred in Zimbabwe in 1994, where 60 school children witnessed a similar event. Pretty compelling stuff. Until next time, make sure you do your homework, tell the bastards nothing, and I'll see you then.